Hello, friends, and welcome back to Acting Like an Actor. I'm your host, Sophie Jordan Collins, and today we are joined by actor James Leon. James can be seen in films such as A Killer High School Reunion, The Resellers, and a small film you might have heard of called Barbie. We talk about transitioning from being an athlete into acting, how to come back to your inner child, and what he learned working with Ryan Gosling. Let's go!
Are you rich?
Are you famous?
What have you been on?
I don't really recognize you, and neither does my mom.
Can you laugh?
Can you cry on command?
I mean, you said you were an actor, man.
What's your backup plan? Is it shattered?
Dude, I'm just acting like an actor.
So, James, how did you get here? Tell us your story.
So I was originally born in Florida, and I was on track. I was under the notion I was gonna go to just college, get a degree, and at the time I was very different though. Like the getting here is kind of strange because I was very different back then, but I'll get back to that. But I went to school in Pennsylvania, got my bachelor's in biology, and you know I kind of just had this moment when I came back home to Florida to my mom. I'm really close to my mom. Me and my dad are close too, but my mom's like my everything. And I was watching Creed, and I was watching Michael B. Jordan up there. And one thing about me is I'm like fiercely passionate, where it's like really bad, not in a bad way, but like it's very intense. Like
Okay.
when I put my mind to something, I go after it really hard. And I've got this, I'm very spiritual too. I'm like a very spiritual, heavy spiritual kind of guy. So when I saw Creed, I said, you know what? Well, I want to go to, Los Angeles. I want to do this thing, do this shit. And my mom was like, yeah, I for sure. And, and like, she was like, I totally can see it. My dad was like, dude, we just spent 150,000 on your medical school stuff. And um, I was just like, I know, but like my heart is telling me something different, and I don't take those signs, those are called um, in the spiritual world we call those uh, stumps. Like they're called like little things that you get in your body telling you to move on something. Instinctively, as a human, you get these all the time when you meet someone for the first time and you feel a connection, or when you do something and you feel good about it, or when your gut's telling you no. That's your body. That's that intuitiveness telling you yes or no. We all
Mm-hmm.
have it, but some people are more tapped into it than others. At that time, I didn't know that I was. I didn't have the consciousness to know that I was, but that was what the universe was telling me at the time. So I packed up my Jeep, and I just left, and I got here. And another crazy thing is that when I got here, I had no idea where I was going. I just drove. I drove to the little lab job I had, and I tried to find the nearest city, which is Encino. And I didn't know that was Encino until now. I've been here for about 2 years. So when I got to Encino, I just saw, hey, studios, because I felt like I can afford a studio. So I was like, okay, what's the studio? So the landlord shows me the studio. I said, let's do it. I signed. Actually, crazy thing about that is I couldn't even get it that day because I didn't have a check. So I had to sleep in my car at a parking lot in LA Fitness that I actually work out at. My first night ever in LA, and I woke up the next morning, and I was like, "Damn, this is like crazy. What's going on?" Because this all happened within a matter of a week.
In order to get to LA, you just packed up everything in Florida and drove here. No plan. Did you know anybody?
No, the only people that I knew was like a Zoom acting class people,
Okay.
but I didn't know them. I kind of just
Mm-hmm.
saw them on Zoom. So coming here is just me. It was just like straight pure raw energy. Like that's it. The person I am now is looking back at that. I realized everything that was going on. I can see that there is a force that was guiding me, because now I'm able to know, okay, this is how I'm going to react in this situation, or this is how my ego is telling me this is what's going on. But back then, I was so kind of naive, and not in a bad way, but in a good way, to think that you don't know anybody out here, and you don't have that much resources. What are you going to do? But that naiveness is what ultimately catapulted me to initially leave. Had I been too logical about things, I would have stayed.
Yeah. Where am I gonna live? I
Yeah,
don't know anybody. You're right.
exactly.
You wouldn't have made the jump.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, cool. And so prior to moving out here, what was your background with acting? Had you done it at all in college, as a child, anything of that sort?
No. So I never acting. When I started, I was 21. I'm 24 now. And I started just Zoom classes. It was just doing Zoom, and um, I had no idea what the fuck I was doing. Like none at all. The only thing I knew was like Will Smith and Denzel watching them and like looking in the mirror and being like, yeah, you know, like doing it, like just
Yeah.
looking goofy. But like I had no formal training,
Okay.
and I started off. I don't want to say any names, but I started off in a really bad school too, like a bad class. They
I feel
just
like we all.
we all had right, yeah, yeah. So like I was just it was looking at what I can do now to back then. I'm like, what in the fuck was I doing? Like
Mhm.
this is crazy. You know what I mean? So yeah, like yeah, I didn't really I'm at a better place now, but I didn't start out too good.
So once you moved to LA, what was kind of your next step in terms of acting? Did you try to get an agent right away?
Mhm.
Were you self-submitting?
Yeah.
Were you what classes did you start taking? Everything
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah, great question. So like this is the part where like I say like man, like where when you really trust whatever you're doing, everything seems to just fall in place for you. And I didn't really have a plan, but I knew the direction I was heading, if that makes sense.
You knew where you were going, you just didn't know how you were going to get there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's an analogy I like to make is when a boat takes off for sail, the the captain of the ship knows where it's going, but in a wild, very big, expansive, treacherous sea, there might be many turns to take. There might be lots of heavy winds, big tides, but the the rudders, the sail know exactly what direction it's pointing at. For me, I knew the direction I was pointing at. I just didn't know what was going to come. I didn't know how I was going to get an agent or manager, how to navigate through it. So I've made a lot of mistakes. And I say that because I made just so many I just sent emails that weren't written properly to managers and agents. I tried to pitch myself in different rooms that weren't applicable to the situation. I've made many mistakes, but the journey is truly the reward. The wins and losses don't mean anything. They just build character. But um, you know, have I made mistakes? Yes. Am I gonna keep making mistakes? Of course. But the journey is just the whole thing about it that's important. So um, no, I didn't have any um, knowledge, but I just kind of everything just kind of fell into place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you recall what was the first acting job you booked? Can you tell us that story?
Yeah, so the first acting job that I booked was with a gentleman. It was a short film, and what's interesting about this one, I mean, not really interesting, was um, it was a self submission on Actors Access, and when like I said, the school I was at, really bad acting. I booked the job, and the director, which is now like he's like a big time director now, and we still stay in contact. But I always think to myself like, man, you just like with that thing, you never know who you meet. Like doing stuff that you self submit, like you never know who you're meeting, and that just and not to get off track, but this self submission of a short film that I did, um, I built this relationship with the director now that's doing these wonderful films, and and I know he's got me in his sights, and but it's more so that the power of knowing that I'm in the right place at the right time. That and here's why this is gonna make sense. I feel as though a lot of actors will say like, oh, like I should have made that choice, or oh, that acting thing that I did here didn't make sense, and I think no, you've got to understand that the acting part of it is just so small. And another big component of this whole thing that people forget is your energy and the things beyond acting that you put into it. And I say that because I'm telling you, this was the worst acting self tape I ever done in my life. It was so bad. I was just so like loud and had no sense of camera. It was so bad. But this director now that is has this huge movie coming out, booked me for a short film, and now looking back, I'm like, yeah, well, sometimes what's meant for you is just meant for you. That's it. There's no questioning it. So you can't question yourself. You dive yourself into a hole. You can't question what you do. You just just know that you're in the right place. Everything you're doing is good, but you have to just have that burning passion and desire. That's everything. So, yeah, that was the first thing I booked, and yeah, that short film. So,
I'm curious because I totally agree with you about that inner voice. Have you always been so in tune with that inner voice? And do you have any advice? Because as actors, we can get so in our head, like you were talking about, overthinking things and just being really anxious and things like that. So do you have any advice for people on how to listen to that inner voice?
yeah. So no, I've haven't been in tune with this inner voice um forever.
Yeah.
This is the one thing I really like about life, and this is the thing I like to that's just beautiful. Looking back at the person that I used to be, we man, this is like, I'm giving you guys, like, this is some free game right here on life. This changed everything. This changed my life. Um, when you grow up, you're this ball, and you're a kid, and you are just so in touch with everything. You react to everything so new. Everything you see for the first is so new to you as a kid. You know what happens? You go to the dinner table at a restaurant, you say, "Mom, I want this," and "Mama, want that." Bam, your mom slaps you. No, shut up. You're being too loud. You go to the park, you do something that's kind of weird. Your dad, "Hey, nope, don't do that." Nope, that's a slap to your inner child. The more hits you're taking from society, your parents, other people, the things you read, that ball you once were starts to get covered by all this shit. And as you get older, you don't try to learn new things. You try to unlearn things to get in touch with that ball, that kid that you were again, right? And that's really the inner voice in you. That kid in you is that inner voice always screaming, saying, "No, but this is how I really fucking feel." Even as a human talking to people, when you're saying stuff that's not really true, you're like slapping that kid. Nope, don't say how you feel. Someone's disrespecting you, but you feel that they have so much more power than you. You're telling, "Nope, shut up. They have more power than you. You are little. You're nothing. Don't say how you really feel. Let them disrespect you." You know, and when I was able to think like, wow, growing up, man, I really like, society took a toll on me, because I started to realize, like, man, James, like, you're like, you kind of just like people pleasing. Like, you just are not, something's off here. And it's not until I came to LA where I started to unpack a lot of shit. I went back. I said, okay, let me just take all this stuff out. I really just went deep into myself, and I said, all right, man, we got to get to that inner kid again. We gotta really like start to feed that inner voice. Am I gonna make enemies, or is everybody gonna like me? Fuck no. Do I care? No, because the people that do like me are gonna be right next door. That's all I'm here for. And really, that's the core of, I believe, a successful person. This whole acting industry is merely more energy based than people give it credit for. They try to really put the pins and needles in how good your acting is, when really you've got to look internally and see, well, how good is my relationship to myself? How good do I feel about myself? Because then when you at the core, if you can feel really good about yourself, if you can really say to yourself, I expect great things out of life. I affirm to myself that these doors of abundance are going to open for me, that I am an irresistible magnet to all that belongs to me. Everything starts to come to you without you even having to try. Then it doesn't become a question of right or wrong. Did I do this right thing on this self tape? Did I make a wrong choice here? Who gives a fuck? As long as you're fucking working and you're putting your effort into it, and you're like really confident in yourself and your skills and your belief, that is everything. There's a lot of schools of thought of um, you know, yogism, Judaism, Christianity. The ultimate thing that ties all of these things together is belief. People put, these little, like when people say, oh, this is my good luck you know thing right here. It's not the object that's the good luck. It's the belief in that object that is the fuel. It's the catalyst of it that makes us think that. And that is um that's everything. I know that was a lot, but that's really the game. That's the game of life.
Yeah.
That's how you win. That's really how you win. And that's how I've been able to win. That's how I know. Like when I changed my thought processes and I've really unpacked and unscathed that inner child to get to that inner voice and to let it rip and be free, that's when I started to notice the biggest shifts in my life.
Yeah, no, that was so beautiful. But no, I totally agree. I think we spend our whole lives, yes, you have this inner child inside of you, and then life beats it down and beats it down and beats it down. And then you're right, as an adult, you have to reverse it.
Yeah.
That's important, you're right, for self growth, but especially as an actor, because if you don't deal with that stuff, you can't come to these characters authentically, and you can't portray it authentically. And you're right, when you are authentic coming to these characters, when you know who you are and you're like, this is the way I'm going to do it, people are attracted to that.
Yeah, exactly.
Part of the reason I wanted to have James on here is exactly what you're saying, because people see that. And I saw that when I met you. We worked on a film together, and I totally saw that things just come easy to you. In fact, can you tell them how you became a part of the film we worked on together? Because let me tell you, the rest of us on this film, we auditioned.
Yeah.
We went through it the normal process. That's not how James got this role. He was the lead in this feature film.
Yeah. 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 So I was at my restaurant job. And by the way, I was a food runner. I'm a biology graduate working as a food runner on the fuel of the fact that I'm gonna do this thing. So I coming into work, my head will always was very high. I will always like, this is all, this is to fuel my passion, this journey that I'm on. So I came into work with just so much energy, and had it not been that, I don't think I would have ended up on that film, or I don't think I would have ended up on that film. There's a certain vibratory uh transmission of energy that I know that I emit, that people can see it in my eyes. And in when I went into work that day, it was 11 p.m. and I was just humming as I usually was, doing what I needed to do to be the person that I needed to be. And I remember I stopped in the restaurant, and there was this gentleman looking at me, and I was like, it's LA, he might be hitting on me. I don't know if he's looking at me. So, he says, hey, come here. And I'm talking to the gentleman. He says, hey, I've got a movie I'm doing, and you look like a perfect fit for one of the roles. And and in my mind, you see these certain things take in my mind. I'm like, yeah, you see, I'm like, yeah, you see how, bro, when you live like this, what happens? You see what happens? And I was like, yeah, dude, like that'd be awesome. Here's my Instagram. We'll talk soon. And that was it. And then I remember I walked away, and I was like, yeah, you see, I fucking knew it. Like, this energy is everything. So I go home. The next morning, I send Rufus, the producer of the film. I said, hey, it was a pleasure meeting you. I'd love to turn. I texted him, I'd love to turn in a self tape for that role. I didn't say, hey, I'd be interested. No, despite him saying what he was saying, I still was willing to go through the process and say, I'll give you a. I'm still willing to put in the work for a self tape. I'll do the self tape to see if I'm right for it. I didn't want any shortcuts at all. I was like, yeah, I'll give you a self tape. And he said, you know what, man? There's something about you. The role is gonna be for you. I knew when I looked at you, I knew it was for you. And I that night, and listen, this not it's this movie. Um, I mean, it's special to me, but it was more spiritual for me that I just kind of sat down and I just like I looked out into the world and the universe and I said, you know, I say this affirmation. I said, Infinite Spirit, keep opening the doors for abundance, for I'm an irresistible magnet for all that belongs to me by divine right. And at the time, I didn't know how I was going to even feel on the set of the movie. And I think you know because from the experience of being on there, it was just bigger. It was just wonderful. And when we got on this set, you know, it was a 7-day feature film. We had to crank things out a lot, and it was hard, but it was something in the air that just was like, this was awesome.
Yeah.
Like this was so good, and this was fucking amazing. Nobody had, everybody was just humming. We just went for it. There was times where it got really stuff started to seem like it was getting low, but it was like time to guys, let's just go. Let's get things up, and we finished the movie. That's all that mattered. Whether or not it comes out or not, but
Yeah.
it was a part of my life that I'll never forget, and it's a story for me that I hold forever of how I got this movie, and how not only how I got the movie, that's one thing, but how the movie went and how what I learned from it, what I learned about myself, is a whole nother thing, and it all ties together of just this thing of you've got to start acting the person that you want to be,
Mm.
you know. You've got to start moving, acting the way of the person you want to be, so that the things that person's worth attracting will start materializing in the actual world, you know. So yeah, that's how that movie came out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm curious too, what are some practical things you did to get in touch with your inner child again?
Yeah, yeah.
Did you do like journaling or like therapy? Like really
Yeah.
practically, how did
Yeah,
that
no,
happen?
yeah, no, that's a great question. No, that's seriously a good question. So, honestly, I didn't journal. I tried it, but it just wasn't that practical just to try to journal. No. What I did was I went out and I spoke to everybody. I went out, it's by doing. Journaling in therapy is good. I'm not discrediting that. Me personally, I need to do it. I need to put action into something. And I just went out and said, bro, say everything that you fucking feel. So when I went out, I said, ma'am, I like your scarf. Sir, you have wonderful taste. Are you guys on a date? Like, I just went out and said everything. And then it's like, oh man, when I did that, everything, like my whole person, everything changed about me. I felt so, when I spoke, I felt like I wasn't walking on eggshells with myself
Yeah.
speaking. I almost just spoke, and I was like so firm in what I was saying to people that I didn't care how they felt, not in a bad way, but I mean I didn't care for approval or validation about anybody. I was like, I'm valid. I'm already here. I'm already here. I'm not, if I'm in your I'm not sorry to be in your presence. That's another thing. When people say I'm sorry, stop saying you're sorry. Sorry for what? For you are existing. You're meant to be like sorry. Get that out of your vocabulary. So I just did the practical thing I did was speak to everybody. I went out. I spoke. I said, hey, 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 hi, hey, 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 hey. And I wasn't afraid if anybody was around, was hearing me. Another thing I did was I just took my phone. I just started like taking pictures of myself, like really getting into my mind that nobody cares what you're really doing, man.
True, yeah.
Nobody, like, people have anxiety that can be alleviated if you just realize nobody really cares about you, unless, like, and I don't mean that in a bad way, like you don't mean anything. I just mean, like, dude, nobody really cares. Like, put up your phone in the gym, do whatever. Nobody cares, dude. The practical thing that you can do is just to not care and do what you feel like doing at every single moment. And if someone gets mad at it, you just say, well, I'm sorry, I'm just living my life. um I'm doing what I need to do. And another thing too that's practical is your words. The power in your words. Be very precise in your words, how you communicate with people. Everything, every interaction is a frame. Whether or not you accept or reject the frame is on your own personal beliefs. So, for example, hey, do you really think that you're going to be the first black Superman? People have asked me that a lot. You don't have any credits. There's Michael B. Jordan, there's these other guys with credits. I said, the previous version of myself was, yeah, man, you're right. Fuck. Oh man, yeah, I should just quit. Yeah, I'm not gonna win. But now all I can do now is smile and say, you know what? Yeah, that's true, but fear not, for I am a human dynamo and I will get all that I desire. And I have many people look at me, what the fuck are you talking about, buddy? And I'm like, you don't need to worry about it. My words is powerful and the infinite spirit hears me. And when you do that, your own personal confidence starts to overrun what people say. People can tell you anything. Hey, man, you're not gonna get that. You're like, no, fear not, for I am a Superman. For all that I want and desire, I shall have. And it has no control over your inner state. Your life and your frame is everything. So if your inner state is very secure, other people cannot. You're impenetrable. You're unconquerable. You're your own master of your own fate. You know?
Yeah, because anything anybody says to you, it doesn't matter. Because
doesn't
your
matter.
self-worth comes from within.
Yeah.
So it sounds like that was the biggest thing that transformed your life, was realizing your self-worth comes from within.
Comes from within.
It doesn't come from anything external,
Yeah.
which gives you so much power as an actor,
So
because
much power.
as an actor, what are we constantly trying to do? People
Yeah.
please, get
Yeah.
this role. And I think too, another reason people are so drawn to your energy is you don't give off that desperate LA energy that a lot of actors do. I'm sure
Yeah.
you come across it all the time,
Oh,
of people
man.
trying to
Yeah.
please and to show off.
Yeah.
But when you know who you are,
Yeah.
it's so funny. Not only are you fulfilled because you know who you are, but others are attracted to that energy.
Exactly.
And opportunity is attracted to that
Oh,
energy,
man,
and
that's
it all
beautiful.
flows together.
Yeah. And another thing, here's a really, anybody watching this, I would suggest you repeat this to yourself every single day of your life. Let's start off with your ego. Your ego can destroy you if you let it. Your ego has conditioned you to react in certain situations that you're accustomed to based on your past experiences. I'm going to repeat that. Your ego has conditioned you to react in certain situations because of your past experiences. Before I get on to the next segment of that, I'm going to give you an example so you really solidify that statement. Your ego, meaning, let's say you're a guy and you've got rejected by a girl. So then your ego says, fuck, man, you're shit. You got rejected. So then the next girl you talk to, she rejects you. What happens? Your ego says, oh, man, you're shit. Your ego, you go to the next girl, you talk to her, she rejects you. Oh, man, you're shit. That starts to become part of your neurology. Your ego starts to reaffirm how you react in that situation when you get rejected, so that every time you get rejected, that's what continues to happen, and it'll continue to happen. If we can talk about this in actor terms, let's say, for example, oh, I turned in a self-tape, I didn't book the role, fuck, I suck. Oh, I turned in a self-tape, I didn't book the role, oh, I suck. Your ego will start to constantly feed that and reverberate that, so that every time you get a self-tape, you expect the same thing to happen. Now, here's where you come into being the master of your fate. Understanding your ego, knowing that your ego is never going to go away and that it's always going to be there. you must direct it in what direction you want it to go. So I say to myself, I'm on a journey that most people will never undertake, and I'm going to learn things that most people don't get to learn. That means that I'm going to fail a lot and even look dumb at times. But who I am as a person weighs far more than trying to please my ego. And because of that, at the end, I will go much farther and grow much faster doing the things that most people will never do. I would say that to yourself every day. If you understand that, then you understand your life. Then you understand that if something doesn't work out, it wasn't meant to be. And you move on. And you make the best out of the situation to get your ego to start to shift the paradigm on how you view things, so that you can go into every situation fresh and in the moment without having the trauma of past experiences.
Yeah, that's so good. Your ego is a liar too,
It's a
because you're
liar.
right. It's based on past experiences, but
Yeah.
this is a new moment and a new
Yeah.
experience. So yeah, that might have happened in the past and that might have been negative.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that this moment is negative. And you're right, when you
Exactly.
bring that negative energy in,
Yeah.
then you just bring it and it repeats
Yeah.
itself.
It re-
So the ego must die.
It
in
must
order
die.
to-
It must
Yeah,
die. And
experience
you
growth.
might, the beautiful thing is knowing that you are going to fail a lot and even look dumb at times. But who you are as a person, far it outweighs the need to please the ego.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's so good. I always tell people, this is kind of a TikTok trend right now, but everybody's like, embrace the cringe. And I kind of love that. Just like embracing doing what you want and doing the things, like you said, yeah, whipping out your phone, doing whatever feels right to you, because that's all that matters at the end of the day.
100%.
Yeah. So I want to do a little pivot here. Can you
Okay.
talk to us about social media and your growth on there? Because on your TikTok, you do kind of talk about some of this stuff.
Yeah.
I noticed,
Yeah.
the like self-growth, the motivation, things like that.
Yeah.
Where does this fall into things? Did that all happen post LA?
Mm.
I do want to give him a little shout out too. He's got 1.7 million
Yeah.
TikTok followers.
Yeah.
Random little flex.
Yeah.
but-
So no. So the thing about like social media is like you curate what you want, quite literally what you want the world to see, right? So
Mhm.
you know, when I first started doing like TikToks, and I was more into TikTok, but when I first started doing it, I was doing just like little random stuff, and stuff would start to blow up. So I'd start to redo it, and it was just mostly like motivational stuff or like doing pranks or something like that. But um, the content shifted when I came to LA because I changed, and
Mhm.
I couldn't do the things that the person that I was before. I like to say that life is like a process of reinventing yourself continually. So every time, every day, I'm a different person. I'm a better person. So ultimately, like, you know, with the TikTok stuff, I started to just try to, okay, let me just like rebrand this to stuff that I like doing, which is like motivational and like uh working out and just kind of like just going out and doing like little vlogs or whatever. And I'm not as big. I don't do it as much now, but I believe if you're, you know, if you're an actor and social media is something you want to partake in, cool. Just make sure it just aligns with everything that you want to do, and you're not, you know, being stupid, and you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you know, if you don't want to do it, it's not gonna make or break you. You know, it's more so of a choice. You know, because on the flip side, I know a lot of content creators that have millions of followers, but you know, don't necessarily want to do movies, and
Mhm.
can't do movies because they don't have, you know, certain kind of training. But that's where it comes to being very very specific on what you tell the universe and what you tell yourself what you want. And I'm very specific on what I want, so I'm more so into the craft of becoming a good artist and crafting my own artistry and being my entertainer. I'm more focused on that, and I'm very specific on what I want to do with that. It's more than the, you know, social media stuff, which it helps to do it. I did a couple of things with like Black Superman and stuff like that, but I just didn't rely on that. I'm also, really deep into the, becoming a better craftsmanship of acting. And so it's just like being specific on what you want. If you want to do skits on there, great. Just, that's what you want to do. But it's a personal thing, I would say.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I love that. I think coming to social media authentically and
Yeah.
if you enjoy it. But
Yeah.
you're right, sometimes people try to force it, like, oh, I need a following or I have
Yeah.
to do this to blow up. And then
Yeah.
it just comes off as forced. You don't
Yeah.
enjoy it. So, yeah,
Exactly.
do it if you want to and don't if you don't.
Yeah.
I know you just brought up the craft of acting a
Yeah.
little bit. Do you want to tell us a little bit about what your training has been the past couple of years, how
Yeah.
you approach your roles, what
Yeah.
your current training is,
Yeah.
etc.?
Yeah. So in the past, schools that I've been to, it was always like, just practically speaking, just like kind of like line readings, almost just like, oh, say it like this, say it like that, say it like this, say it like that. Um, and just to stay on that, when you do that, you are practically saying to the world, I'm just putting what I think you want here, and I'm this is all that I just how the lines are written is what I'm gonna do. And if when you go back to when you were a kid and you said, um, watching a movie and you went into the parking lot and you just like started to play, and you were so unhindered by that. You were more so just like imagining, like using your imagination to be like, oh, I'm like a Star Wars guy, and you were so much better than you are that, oh, I'm gonna break down every verb on this line. And you got to think, which one do you want to be? Not saying that you take away the work of breaking down a script. That's perfectly fine. But you've got to say, what is my what art am I bringing to the industry? What is my legacy? What is my stamp on my work that makes me me? Every single A-list actor you see has a stamp on their work, on what they do. You got to ask yourself, if I do it how my coach is telling me, am I leaving my own personal stamp on my work so that people can start to find me instead of me always trying to find them? Do I want to be found, or you know what you got to these things is you got to think about. And I'm not even talking about acting per se. It's almost just like a mindset thing. So my training now is, um and how I approach something is very practically, for anybody watching, is I first look at a script or a scene and I just think, what's going on? What's going on? Why am I saying these things? I'm like doing the work that a traditional actor would do. But that's it. It stops there. The next part is, okay, little kid James, what are you gonna do to make this shit like yours? All right, like think about, and I do this. I was like, think back when you're a kid. The character breakdown says a guy like James Bond, or like the guy is like a villain. How would a kid play a villain? Like, what would he do? Like, what would like, what would that be like? And that's kind of how I go about it. And I start to, in my little room, my studio, I walk around how a villain would walk, and I talk like it, and then I kind of like then I go to the back to the words, and I like start to just like kind of play around with it like a little kid again. And um I always say to myself, the school that I'm at, it's like a cinematic class, and we don't do any of that. We don't really talk about acting at all. More so we talk about like, okay, uh so my instructor would say, pretend like, you're on a first date. How would you deliver these lines? And we'd say the whole page that way. And that is far more interesting than to like break it down to how the traditional acting schools would say, okay, start off the scene like this, but then start to make it argumentative here, and then no, because that's just not interesting. What's more interesting is to see a real human, like doing something, and then you have, you add in, stuff. And it's much more complicated than I can't really articulate it that well. But um the best way I can say it in practical terms is, be a little kid again. That's like the and use your imagination. Talk with your eyes first before your mouth. um Another thing is, you got to think, right? in this city of Los Angeles, there's so many fucking actors. A lot of people are gonna be right for the role. Make the choice that's might get you fired. Leave your stamp on your work, man. Leave whatever. It could be the wrong choice, bro, but fuck it. At least it's your stamp, your work, and just do it, man. Be different. Not for the sake of being different, but I mean be different to be you. And yeah, that's all I got for that.
Yeah, no, that's so good.
Yeah.
I think too, again, it comes back to like actors really getting in their head, like trying to find the motivation behind why they say these things and da da da. But I totally agree with you. That's not real.
Yeah.
Because even like as a person, I'm not thinking right now, okay, why am I saying these words to Jane?
Yeah.
What's the passion? Like, no, I'm
Exactly.
just talking, I'm just being.
Yeah.
And that's
Oh my
really
God.
what it
That's
is.
such. Yeah.
Acting is just being present. And
Wow.
the minute you get out of your head is when the most beautiful moments happen. Because
Yeah.
I don't know if you feel this way, but when I'm acting, the minute I get up in my head and start thinking like, oh, I should say it this way,
Yeah.
my performance is shot. My
Yeah.
best moments are when I'm present.
Yeah.
When I'm looking at the person, when I'm talking,
Yeah.
when we're having those moments.
Yeah,
So,
100%. And just another thing too with that, you just brought something up that's very important. Is don't be the what's the word? This is gonna sound a little counterintuitive. You will accomplish more by caring less. What I mean is don't be such a serious fucking actor. Like I've met so many actors that are like, yeah, like in my scene, I don't feel like this is right. Like they're like, yeah. So I break down my script, like, oh no, and they have all this writing on their script and stuff like that, and then I'm like, oh shit. And I'm like, okay, this is the kind. Imagine bringing that to someone and like, okay, so we have 30 minutes to shoot. This she needs to break down her script like this, and she has to know. You want to be the actor that's like, hey, we got to shoot this. Can you remember that and make that look like a movie? You want to be that actor, and that actor right there is the one that can look at that and say, yeah, I mean, yeah, I can imagine like when I was a little kid, if this like, oh yeah, cool, yeah, I can do that, yeah, easy. And all your favorite actors, that's how they are. That's how they are. That's really like all your favorite actors go back to that sandbox. Um, and they just like when so in the Barbie movie, I had a chance to see Ryan Gosling get into character. I kid you not, we were on set. Greta Gerwig said, me and Ryan were having a conversation. He was asking me where I was like, whoa, this is like, bro, I fucking love you, and I'm just like he's like my man crush. Like I fucking love him. I love this guy, and Greta says, okay, sound speed. This guy in a second just like does this thing and he gets into his little Ken mode, and I'm like, whoa, this is awesome. And we do the scene, cut. He's like, yeah, so man, what's going on? She says, sound speed, and he's like, and she's like, cut. He's like, yeah, so James, like, yeah, man, see, you work out a lot. She says, sound speed, and then he's back to his Ken little mode, and then cut. And I would to see your favorite actor, like he just goes into it like a beast. That showed me everything I needed to know. Don't be so fucking serious. Be a kid. Enjoy it. You have so much more fun. You would look like a less inhibited person. Don't be that serious actor that's walking around like, oh, no, I've got to go to class, or not that, but like, oh, I've got to make sure my pauses are filled with this and that. And dude, just care a little bit less. Train hard, work hard, let it go, care a little bit less, and live on to see another day.
it's also that thing too where when you like hold on to something so tightly, it's
Yeah.
almost like it runs away from
It
you.
runs-
But
yeah.
you're right, the minute you let things go,
Yeah.
it's like it comes to you and it finds you.
Yeah.
I do want to make a little pivot. Can you tell us how you got involved in Barbie and kind
Yeah.
of how that came to you?
Yeah. So, first off, met my manager. I was in Rouse. I just got done jogging. Went in just to get a water. It's another thing. I went in to get a water, and she's in line, like because the fridges, you know how the fridges are in front of the little. I just grabbed the water. She's on the other side on her cart. She grabs my hand, and I'm like, "Excuse me," and she's like, "Oh, are you an actor?" I said, yeah, I kind of just moved here. I don't really know what what's going on. She's like, I'm a talent manager. Let's have coffee tomorrow morning. So I'm like, okay, cool. And then like I went back on my run, and then it's like I was like, all right, cool. I mean, shit, this is like, whoa, it's crazy. Go and meet with her, and she knows a mutual friend of mine. This guy that actually kind of also like when I was doing TikToks, he told me to come out to LA. His name was Ty, and she's like, "Oh, you know Ty?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And then, um, and after the coffee thing, I didn't hear from her for about a week, and Ty was like, "Hey, do you have a manager?" I said, "No." And he was like, "Oh, I know a lady. Um, send me your info." So he sent it to her, and then I get a call, and she's like, "Hey, you're the guy from Star. You like we met at Starbucks," and it's the same lady. And I said, "Wow." I was like, "What?" Yeah. She's like, "Hey, we're just gonna do it. Put me on your Actors Access, whatever." And we did it. I said, "You know what? This lady believes in me. I'm just gonna go with it. Let's do it." We go through, we do auditions, and I'm getting some really good stuff, and that's when the first Barbie role. I went out for three different roles in Barbie. The first one was um it was a guy on the beach. I didn't hear back from that, and I got a second request for the lifeguard, and then the third one I got was for muscular guy on the beach. So I didn't hear from anybody. Months go by, not months, but like a couple weeks, and then I get a phone call. She says, "Hey, Mr. Lifeguard, you ready to be in Barbie?" I said, "What?" And she was like, "Yeah, you got it." And I was like, "Oh fuck, let's go, let's do it." What's crazy though is like the other two roles, they weren't with any of the Kens, and like Ryan Gosling's one of
Oh my God, yeah, you
yeah,
got the only role where you
yeah,
actually interacted. Because
yeah,
he talks to Ryan in his
yeah,
scene.
yeah.
That is wild,
Yeah, and I
James.
was like, oh, I was like, that's the one. Because when I was reading this, I was like, no, I wanted the lifeguard one. Because that was like when they sent me the third one, I was like, holy shit! I hope they really give me the one that was for the lifeguard one. Lo and behold, it's the one I got, and I almost was like, wow, like the way I met this my manager, then everything happening the way it did, and then here's another thing. I mean, at the time, when I got it, I was like, Barbie movie, yes, sounds awesome. Seeing with Ryan Gosling, cool. But I didn't know it would be what it is now. Which was like the other thing was like, holy fuck.
Yeah.
Like coming back to it now, I'm just like I was probably on screen for 15 seconds, but was just like a lot of things. Like
It's a good little chunk though. He's
yeah,
got a good little spot in
yeah,
there
and I
for
and
sure.
like that little like it was like just crazy
Hmm.
like I didn't know. I mean, it could have done anything. It could have been bad, but the way it shook the world was like, whoa, like, this is cool to be a part of this shit. And like I was like, man, if you know, it's just, oh man, it's crazy. So yeah,
It's so wild to me how these opportunities just find you.
yeah,
But what's also respectable about you too is like you do put in the work. It's
yeah,
not like you're one of those people who's like, I'm just manifesting. Like
yeah,
you put in the action
yeah,
as well.
yeah,
So these
yeah,
things do come to you.
yeah,
As we come to a close here,
mm-hmm.
I want to ask you one final question.
Yeah,
What is your advice to young
mm-hmm.
James? Maybe like right when you first moved to LA or you're 1st
Mm-hmm.
beginning this self-discovery journey, what's
Yeah.
something you would tell him?
Um, Something I would tell young James is, um, stop. Don't even worry. Do not worry. It will work out at the end. Um, a lot of the times I found myself like before worrying a lot, stressing a lot. And at the end of the day, all those worries and stresses always work themselves out. And the times that I spent worrying and stressing were for nothing, where I could just be living. And if that's something I could tell myself, I would say, dude, don't worry about where you're gonna live. You'll figure it out. Don't worry about how this is gonna get paid. Something will is gonna come up for you. Don't worry about if X. No, it's gonna work out. It's gonna work out. It's gonna work out. And that's what I would tell them, because everything works out for you at the end. When you say to the universe and you tell yourself that, listen, everything just works out for me, everything just works out for you.
It does, and
And
it
it
has.
does.
Look where you're
Yeah.
at now. So
Yeah.
hey,
Yeah.
truly.
Yeah.
So the segment we always end with, it's called the Fast Frisky Five. So I'm
Mhm.
going to shoot 5 questions at you, just rapid fire, and
Okay.
first thing that comes to your mind, and
Okay.
we'll close from there.
Okay.
So the first one is favorite quote.
Fear not. Fear not, for I am a Superman. I will have all that I desire.
Love that. What's something in LA not a lot of people know about? So maybe like your secret favorite restaurant or like a fun place.
Ooh, spicy rigatoni at Ospey in Venice Beach.
What's your favorite line in a movie?
Wakanda forever.
Love it. Pickles, yay or nay?
No.
All right. And then finally, a recent obsession of yours.
Trader Joe's almond filled pretzels.
Ooh.
Yeah.
All right.
10 out of 10.
Okay, James, anything you want to leave our acting like an actor guests with?
Guys, I'm gonna just leave you guys with this. I'm gonna repeat it one more time. Your ego is never gonna go away. It's always gonna be there. So you must direct it where to go. So tell yourself that I am on a journey that most people will never undertake. I will learn things that most people will never learn. And in doing so, I'm going to fail a lot and I will look stupid at times. But who I am as a person far outweighs the need to please my ego. And at the end, I will go farther and grow faster doing the things that most people never do. Say that to yourself every day and watch the miracles happen.
Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you next week.